will be asking about, so I'll just kind of jump to it. But the threat that's been going around on social media, various platforms, texting stuff, everything. So basically we believe it's probably a spin-off from an earlier threat that happened in another state. There's some similarities between that one and this most recent one. We believe that somebody probably altered or manipulated it to make it seem like there were schools from Sioux Falls listed. But anytime we have threats like this, whether they come from a text message or any various social media platforms, we work closely with the school district, other local agencies if we need to, and also state agencies. And the focus of that is obviously first priority is keeping the schools safe, but second priority is finding out if the threat is credible, if there's anything to it, or and then I should say the last one is then who is responsible. And so we've had cases like this in the past where we've been able to find out locally that some of these have originated, and we've had juveniles that have been arrested and charged with crimes. Quite frequently what we find is these posts originate somewhere else, in another state, sometimes even another part of the country, and then as they get shared and reshared, then they end up in Sioux Falls. And so sometimes it's a school that has a similar name to another school in another state, which gets some attention. Other times we have people that are altering or manipulating that post and then changing it so it's specific to Sioux Falls. So in this case, we don't have any information that leads to any type of credible threat. We're still investigating this. We're looking to see if we can determine locally who was able to manipulate that or put out that information. But there's no information that any of this stuff was credible. So anyway, I'll ask questions. I'm sure you probably have questions.
What state did the spin-off?
That I don't know. That was one of the things we had heard working with the state, with South Dakota State, that they had information that it came from another state. And so it was, I don't have the details on which specific state that was.
So like whoever manipulated the image might face charges?
It's too early to say that. You know, that's one of the things we always try to track down is if these things originated locally, where did they come from? What was the point? What was the intent behind that? I just threw out that example in the past. We've had something like this where people have been charged, but it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody would be charged in every case. If we were able to determine where that originated from, then it would be up to the state's attorney's office to make that decision if somebody would be charged or not.
And can you kind of like walk through the timeline of like when you guys heard about this and what steps were taken after to like make sure the schools were safe, and then kind of reach out to any students who might have shared?
Yeah, I don't have all those specific details. They're still working on that report, so they're still coming in. I believe it was yesterday morning when we were first notified of that. And in any case, when we get notified of a threat, it's basically trying to track where it came from. We'll notify the school district immediately. There may be things on their side of their side of it as far as the investigation that they can do. And we have a great relationship with the Sioux Falls School District, so there's a lot of information sharing that goes back and forth. And what we're doing is trying to find out, A, is this credible, and B, who's responsible. And sometimes we may err on I should say we're going to err on the side of caution, but if we don't have any information that there's anything credible to that, then we'll let the school district know, and frequently they'll send messages out to the parents because they know about it, they hear about it. Parents see these messages, the kids tell the parents, and the parents will call the school district or call the police, sometimes both. And so that information sharing is really critical, and obviously the goal is to make sure that all the students are safe.
My understanding is there was a phone call made by the school district to parents of students in the Sioux Falls School District, and the message said that police would be following up with students that potentially shared that information. So is that accurate? I guess I don't know. Are you guys going to be following up with every kid that shared that? I don't feel like that's a possibility. There's so many.
Well, there's a lot of things that we do with investigations.
Right.
And I'm not going to go into the specific details about what happens. I can't speak to what the message was that the school district sent out, but frequently if we're trying to find where something originated. It's talking to people that received that message, finding out where they received it. So sometimes these investigations can be very time intensive, and a lot of times, to speak to your point, it doesn't seem feasible, but there are times when we do things like that.
So there is a potential that if my kid shared that post on Snapchat without, me knowing, that you guys could show up at my door, I guess, and talk to my kid about it? That's what I'm kind of getting at?
There's a chance,
Okay.
we're not going to track down everybody that shared that post. That's not the whole point of something like this. We're trying to get to the point where it came from. And there's different ways that we can do about that, but sometimes talking to kids, where did you see it? Where did you, when you got that, when you received it, where did it come from? And so we're kind of backtracking in that way. And that's one of the ways that we can investigate these types of issues.
Should an organization be reposting and sharing like unverified threats like these as they're happening?
Well, there's two sides to that. One of them is I guess, kind of the education side of things, or letting people know that it's happening. The flip side of that is you may be adding to some type of concern, or hysteria is the wrong word, but you may be adding to the fuel of that fire. So, I would say if people receive a message like that, the best thing they can do is report it to the police department, and then there may be a delay. I mean, we have to realize that we are looking into this and investigating it, so we can't initially come out with a statement. We can't do anything right away until we have been able to determine if something's credible or not credible. The best thing we could say is if people receive that message, it doesn't matter if it's a kid or a parent or somebody else, call police, let us know about it, and then we can investigate it and we can let people know. And of course, I said we're in constant communication with the school district, and so likely there's going to be a message either from the police department or the school district that would go out explaining the situation and what the expectation would be.
And then, do you know, was the threat altered locally? Do you know?
That's one of the things we're looking at. I don't know if we have an answer to that question. The original post, there was some similarities, I should say. Maybe that's the best way to say that. From the original post to the one that we've seen locally, there's a lot of similarities between those, which led us to believe that that message had been manipulated, and that was reflective of the schools from Sioux Falls that were listed.
Are you guys taking any steps then to, like, any extra safety precautions as the police department for these schools? Did you maybe add an extra resource officer?
No,
Are you guys
I
doing
don't.
any
There's nothing.
drive-bys?
Yeah, there's nothing extra that we're taking. I mean, we take steps every day to make sure the schools are safe in Sioux Falls, and we have school resource officers that are assigned. Sometimes they're permanently, sometimes in. How do I want to say that? We have them that are in the high schools and middle schools, and then they're assigned to the elementary schools. So they have that coverage, and they're aware of what's going on. Working with the school district closely and sharing that information means that the district is letting the principals know, letting the staff know. So if there's issues, they know right away to call the SRO, and then they'll respond. And if it's some emergent situation, then you're going to have all the police that are working that are heading that way as well. So we're not taking any extra steps because we already take a lot of steps presently to keep kids safe no matter what. So we're aware of everything that's going on. Again, that information sharing is key to keep everybody informed, to know where the investigation stands, to know if there's any issues, and then the school resource officers will handle that and deal with those.
And then if this were a credible threat, what would that look like on your guys' end? I mean, what would be the steps? How would this look different if it were credible?
How would it?
I mean, like, what if it were a credible threat? What steps would be happening? I mean, what would be different
I
in
can't
the-
speak to a hypothetical like
Sure.
that. Yeah. I mean, it just goes back to, we have school resource officers that are at the schools or assigned to the schools
Would the schools be shut
to
down
make.
today, or?
That's not a question for the police department. That'd be a question for the school district.
Okay.
I can't
Yeah,
I
what
can't go
ifs?
into those hypotheticals because there's too many different variables and too many different factors, and there's not one set response that's going to dictate every situation. Every situation is going to be different, and so we'd have to evaluate that as it comes in.
Were any other school districts affected in the area or in the state by this, like a similar threat?
I don't know if other school districts were affected. Sometimes we hear about that a message spreads around. I don't, that's one of the things when we work with the state, because they're kind of the, their center, information center, I can't think what it's called right off the top of my head. But anyway, they receive that intelligence from law enforcement all across the state, so they would be better to answer that question if there's been anything. I haven't heard anything, but sometimes we've seen that before, that messages pop up around different cities in South Dakota. Anything else on that? Okay, on the log, I don't have really much, if anything. Both aggravated assaults are domestics, the burglaries are reports, nothing big out of the disorderlies. Frauds are reports. Most of the larcenies are shopliftings, and there's one weapons violation. That was somebody that threatened people with a gun, but no gun was used, so that's kind of all I have.
I just have one question. Is there any update on the missing Sioux Falls man or any new things with that?
No, nothing. We've still been getting some tips coming in on the missing person, Mr. Weathersby, is that right? But we have not found him yet. I mean, we've done different tools to look for him. We're still working on that, but haven't had any luck finding him at this point.
Any updates on the Dunham Park, any suspects or arrests?
Nothing, no. The homicides, still working on those.
Okay, and then the Wednesday shooting at Tanager? Place?
Yep, same thing, yep. Nothing new on that one either.
Anything on the baby Gabriel?
Nope. Nothing new on those big investigations. Still working on them. Anything else? Okay, thanks.